Well, good morning. Here it is, Thursday. Glad you could be with us today. I'm Marlon Bowling, your tour guide to the ag commodities. We had some weaker trade overnight in the grain markets, but this morning we have something new to digest. Because it's Thursday, we have the weekly export sales numbers that just came out from USDA. I was kind of going through these here a little bit ago, and I want to share them with you here and see if they were up or down this week. Actually, overall, not too bad, really. Corn was at 857,000 tons this week. And what I do is I combine the old crop and the new crop sales together to come up with one lump sum total here. Actually, Mexico was a big buyer. Of course, we know that from the other day. They had that big purchase just a few days ago of 1.6 million tons. That didn't really show up in this number yet. So next week will probably be a big one. Soybeans came in at 672,200 tons this time around. And looking back at the main buyer, yep, it was China, 581,200 tons, it says. And Mexico actually bought 147,000 tons of soybeans. Soy meal was up there at 358,800 tons. We had soy oil at 4,800 tons. And the wheat, look at that wheat number. That was 544,500 tons. That was 77% higher than what we had the previous week. Now, I was somewhat impressed by that. We have Brian Hoops with us. And of course, he's with Midwest Market Solutions. And he joins us now from Springfield, Missouri. That wheat number kind of jumped off the page at me, Brian. How about you?
Good morning, Marlon. Yeah, it was a good number. So you look at that wheat, it's about 20 million bushels or so. We need to be averaging about 8 million to hit the USDA forecast. So it was a very strong number. In fact, that's the second largest weekly sales of this marketing year for the wheat. And like as I said, very, very good number. Corn and soybeans were also above the pace needed to hit the USDA forecast, although not quite as strong. Corn was 33.1 million bushels. I think we need to be doing around 30 or 31 million. Soybeans at 24 million. We need to be doing 20 to 21 million there. So yeah, both of those numbers are above the pace for the USDA forecast currently. And as you mentioned, Mexico is a big standout buyer. They accounted for almost a third of the corn purchases for this week. The sale that you referenced on Monday will be included in next week's sale, so that should be a marking year high very easily. That was, Monday's sale was 65 million bushels, so no doubt we'll see very strong numbers next week in the corn. And then, as you mentioned, China showed up once again as a big buyer of soybeans. They accounted for almost all the purchases of soybeans this morning. About 21.5 of the 24.7 million bushels that were sold this week was accounted for China or that unknown destination that was switched into the China category. So good to see that they're continuing to kind of narrow that difference between last year's sales pace and this year. Of course, there's been a little bit of rumors floating around that China is looking at canceling some purchases that they've made. Kind of reason why soybeans sold off yesterday in the overnight is those rumors that maybe they've started to cancel a couple purchases because of shipping costs coming out of the Gulf of Mexico.
Do you think that rumor was weighing on the overnight trade then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it surfaced around midday when we heard it, and that's when beans started to come off of their highs, closing 13, 14 off their highs, and then traded lower overnight. So, of course, we don't have any confirmation of that yet, just the kind of rumors that were hitting the market, and it seemed to be enough in a low volume session to weigh on the bean prices.
Brian, I had heard in some areas in Brazil, it's so hot and so dry that they're actually holding off planting for a little while until they can get some rain. Have you heard that?
Yeah, we've been hearing that too. They're just kind of getting started planting. Only maybe 1 or 2% of the crop is in the ground at this point. But there are areas that are abnormally dry for this time of year, and they're not in a hurry to get the crop in the ground. So they're holding off, waiting until they get some rain showers, soften the ground up, and then they'll go ahead and seed. So I think it's just kind of a matter, not that it's not going to get planted, it's just a matter it's going to take a little bit longer to get that crop in the ground, maybe push the planting dates back a week or 2 weeks until rain falls.
Good to take a little bite out of that first planted corn crop, too. Let's review on the market prices overnight, just a touch on that. And on the corn in the overnight trade here, our quotes from bar chart are showing that we were down 1.5 pennies on December at 481 3/4. So just a touch weaker. As I mentioned, soybeans were down 9 on November at 1294 1/4. So well off of their overnight highs by quite a bit. On the wheat in Chicago, we had December 1 3/4 lower at 577 3/4. Kansas City December wheat was down 6 though at 688.5. It still can't find a friend. And in Minneapolis, spring wheat December was down 1 3/4 at 749, and we'll finish up on the cotton with December up 65 points overnight at 88.95. We'll come back and, we have some beef and pork export numbers too. We'll talk about them next. Well, we're talking with Brian Hoops, and this morning we got our weekly export sales data out. It included numbers for beef and pork sales. And Brian, let's take a look at what the numbers were this week. On the beef side of things, we sold 17,900 tons for this calendar year and next year. And the pork, 27,400 tons. Both of those, to me, seem to be pretty solid numbers this time around. What'd you think?
Yeah, they were a rebound from last week, getting closer back into that comfort zone where we've been in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So that's pretty much in line with average. So not anything that's going to blow away the trade or really cause a reaction to the market to this, today. This week we've seen some cash trade develop in the Southern Plains, steady money, northern live trade, steady money, but it was a couple dollars softer on a dress basis. So we were looking 290 to 292, and a little bit disappointment there, I think, to the trade. Also, quarterly hog and pig report comes out today. Trade's looking for some positive numbers out of that, but I don't think it's going to really move the market all that much unless we get a real surprise on tomorrow in reaction to today's report.
What do you think the dress basis sales struggled yesterday? Were the basis levels between that and the live basis getting out of kilter a little bit or not?
Yeah, it could be a little bit. We've been really strong in the northern trade, especially dressed, and I think they got enough cattle around them and just kind of a supply situation. Maybe the supplies got a little bit larger, and Packers just pulled back their bids, and there was enough trade there to. I think we can say that the market's going to end up being a steady to $2 weaker market this week.
Could they be kind of biding their time until we roll the calendar over and maybe they can draw on new contract cattle?
Well, we've been hearing talk that as they get into November, December, there's going to be more supply of cattle available. The on-feed reports suggest less than year-ago levels, but there is some talk from the Packers that a lot of the cattle were pulled ahead a little bit, and then we had a tight window, but those supplies are going to get more plentiful into the November, December timeframe, and they won't have to bid up for the cash markets. Of course, they have negative margins, so they don't want to. They want to leverage the cash markets down and prop up the box beef values.
All righty, Brian. Well, thanks for explaining all that. Great information. And just to touch on the prices that we closed at yesterday on the live cattle board here on these quotes from bar chart. Here's a quick look. We were lower on December by 30 cents on the live cattle yesterday. On the feeders, we wrapped up the session with October down $1.62, but the far out deferreds were over $2 weaker. Lean hog trade closed higher with December up 42 cents yesterday. At 72.77, we'll see how they want to rock and roll this morning. Thanks, Brian. Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions with us here on a Thursday morning. Back to Tammy. How are you?